Ex-BF insists I play a game he assumes he's better at. I complied. Every once in a while I think about this story while I'm idly playing Sudoku on my phone, and it makes me smile. I realized it's perfect malicious compliance, petty revenge material. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but some background is needed. A few years ago when I was in grad school, I dated a man who was several years older than me, who had just finished his master's at the same school. Completely different program, but both in the realm of STEM. And started a company based on that work. He seemed to have a chip on his shoulder about the fact that he went back to school in his late 20s. And the fact that I was in a PhD program. I need to emphasize I did not think I was better or smarter than him in any way. And I thought and still think he is incredibly smart and his company does fascinating work. But he still projected this inferiority complex on me, and it was one of many things that soured our relationship. He was obsessed with feeling smarter than me and bringing me down a peg. The relationship ran its course within a year and the breakup was messy. But he insisted on remaining friends despite a lot of obvious tension between us. One day he asked me to help him pick up a moving truck he needed for work, and I agreed. But when I got in the car we were kind of quiet for a couple minutes, so I pulled out my phone and finished the Sudoku game I had up in my browser. For some context, I am incredibly good at Sudoku relative to most people. This is because I obsessively solved Sudoku puzzles as a kid and just had big books of them to solve on long bus rides to school. And it's still my go-to game to play while waiting in line, pooping, etc. I don't really correlate this with intelligence. My brain is just trained to recognize the patterns, and solving them is soothing. He looked over and saw I was playing and asked what app I played on. I said I just play on a certain website I like, and when he asked why I don't use a Sudoku app, I tried to be as neutral as possible in my response and said that the website had a nice spread of difficulty and that every app I tried had either been all too easy or too hard. Admittedly, it's almost always too easy. But because of aforementioned inferiority complex, I was hedging this on purpose. He had a kind of, "Oh really?" response and insisted I try the app he has on his phone because he was sure I would find it hard. So, I maliciously complied. I opened up the hardest setting of puzzle in his app and solved it in about a minute, beating the record on his phone by at least a minute and a half. I showed it to him and he seemed alarmed and basically said I got lucky. So, I played several more times so that my times flooded the fastest times list until his were all gone. His shock and frustration at this was satisfying on its own. But many months later, when I had long forgotten about it, he randomly sent me a screenshot of his puzzle in that app with a faster time. Except it was for the easiest puzzle setting. So of course, to be petty, I immediately downloaded the app, played on the easiest setting, beat his time by a significant margin again, and sent a screenshot. Was this mean? Maybe. Was it satisfying? Yes. I had a coworker that I really liked who got me started on the Sudoku puzzles. I love math and number problems, so I quickly got really good at them. He stopped doing them. He then included me in his love of cribbage. He carried the game around and we would play at breaks and such. I enjoyed it, and he was understanding that it took me a long time to add up my points. Good crib players memorize the scores and can add your hand as you lay down the cards. We had been playing for about a year during our breaks when I hit a 3-day winning streak. We stopped playing crib. I still enjoyed working with him and it didn't matter to me if I won or lost a game. But it seemed to bother him. He obsessed for months about beating you once. He got exactly what he deserved. Nicely played. It must be exhausting to compare everything one does to other people. Oof. Memory lane time. When my college roommate had a Tetris high score on my computer, I simply could not comprehend. I'd get to the final stage and the blocks dropped so insanely fast I'd be wiped out in about a minute. Every single time. No inferiority complex here. By the way, I'm a pretty smart guy. But I freely admit that my roommate was significantly smarter. He's still a close friend and he's a legit genius. Anyway, I used to play with the computer music off and a CD cranking some tunes. This was in the late 80s. For months, his high score was safe. Until one day, on a whim, I turned the Tetris music back on. And that's when I discovered the secret to beating his high score. The final level played a Russian folk song. And the pieces dropped quickly but at a playable speed. Until the song ended. At which point they sped up to warp speed. Until you cleared a single line of blocks. And the speed would immediately slow down again for several minutes. Then the song would start up again and repeat the cycle. All the time I'd been playing with the sound off. That functionality was not there. It was just warp speed the entire time. Anyway, with the music turned on I finally beat his high score. It was so satisfying I'm now sharing the story with a bunch of strangers. 25 years after it happened. But yeah, he's still way smarter than I am. P.S. Op. You'd kick my ass at Sudoku. My partner actually stopped playing Sudoku once I started beating him on it. He still says I took the game away from him, face with rolling eyes. This made me lol. I love the pettiness. He's a douche. He deserved it. I always assumed people went back to grad school later in life for 3 reasons. 1. Financial reasons. 2. Career advancement. Often majored in one thing. Career went in a different direction. Grad school lets them advance. 3. Older people. Often women. Who are looking to do something once kids are grown. Or retirees. It's got nothing to do with intelligence. Cracking the Cryptic is a great YouTube channel with daily live solves of generally very difficult Sudoku and Sudoku variant problems. They also post a link to the problem if you want to try it first. I had a similar experience playing Scrabble. I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time and her best friend wanted to play a game of Scrabble. She said it was probably pointless as she already knew she would win as she was a Scrabble master. She even claimed she once got 450 points for a single word, which I'm not even sure is possible. I studied English Lit at university and have had my head in a book ever since I learned to read, so my vocabulary is fairly decent. Scores were somewhat close throughout most of the game, but with only a few turns left she put down a word that gave me a letter that enabled me to use all 7 tiles on a triple word score and get bonus points. This gave me an almost unbeatable lead, and the ironic thing is that the word was champion. She completely lost it and flipped the board, sending tiles flying everywhere, and stormed out of the room. From that day on she hated me with a passion and did everything within her power to get my girlfriend to break up with me. All because she lost a game of Scrabble. I think this is what the kids refer to as living rent-free in his head. Lol. Not sure this qualifies as compliance. But it's still a great story. It reminds me of my friend M. He's super competitive. And absolutely insufferable if he wins at a game. Anyway, his new lodger is this super bright young lady. But she is quite coy about it and doesn't flaunt how clever she is. Let's call her E. They played some board games a few times. But nothing serious. One evening, M gets the chess set out. And E said, "Oh, I'm not sure. I don't really know much about chess." The ever-gallant M offered to go easy on E while she learned. After a few brief instructions and reminders on how each piece moves, they slowly come to the end of the game. And M had lost. "Oh, well done. You got quite lucky. Let's try again, but I'll play properly this time," he says. And promptly E wins again. A close game. But another loss for M. "I think I'm getting the hang of this," says E. M is seeing red now, and is determined to crush this upstart. One more game. E thoroughly and comprehensively thrashes M. After the game, E reveals that she used to play nationally and internationally in her teens, traveling all over the world to play competitive chess. M puts the chess set away, suitably put in his place. It's all fun and games until it's all fun and games. How did my mom started playing Candy Crush? Her ex said, "That's not a game for you. It's for smart people. You have to think actually." She beat him in 2 days. Well, he was stuck on level 76 IIRC, then he asked her to help him. Several years later, she's still playing. Don't ask me for her level. It's in the 1000s. My late wife was very competitive about games. Board games, card games, video games and etc. She took up almost any game she was exposed to and quickly became very good at all of them. She hated to lose. But worse than that, she really hated finding out someone had let her win. My cousin Slim won't play cards with me because I beat him 7 hands in a row. There's this card game that old men play. It's not supposed to be taught to women, but my deceased cousin taught me. My dad was not happy, but eventually we would play against each other. So when cousin Slim, the card shark, was staying with us for a few days, he decided he wanted to play cards. He had no idea I could play and I annihilated him. Dad was smiling, very proud of me, and Slim's older brother could not stop laughing. When Slim asked his brother why he was laughing, his brother replied, "You know she beats her dad and me, right?" Quote. Slim was not pleased and would have started cussing had his mom not appeared. And to this day, Slim will not play any kind of card games with me. My wife is incredibly good at card games, especially ones that require quick reflexes or strategy. It's not that I don't want to play against her. It's that I can't play against her because I'm simply not anywhere near as good as her. I wish I could play with her because she obviously enjoys the games, but it's like playing video games against a younger sibling with an unplugged controller. She has tried to let me win so that I feel like I'm doing okay, but it's an empty victory for both of us. Fun to watch her run a clinic in poker against the pros, though. The majority of my friends are PhDs. I'm not. I only have my MS. It's interesting watching the single women in the dating world. They pick up a lot of guys who just really, absolutely, cannot deal with the fact that they're dating a woman with a brain. It's all about the little things, lol. I did this on a plane with someone. On my first flight, I grabbed one of the magazines and solved the hardest Sudoku puzzle on the back page. Took me a little while. It was a tough puzzle. And while being fairly good at Sudoku, I seem to lack the natural prowess you display. But I ended up getting all 4 done before the first flight was over. I had a plane change on my layover. And on the new flight, the person I was sitting next to had very poor plane etiquette. Listening to music on his phone without headphones, jostling my armrest, foul-smelling food, etc. He pulled out the magazine and started working on the hardest puzzle. I got the vibe he was the yuppie type. someone more than willing to demonstrate his superiority over others. I could tell he was struggling a couple of minutes in. So I pulled my magazine out and started solving the puzzle that I had solved previously. I made a good show of acting like I was just a natural at Sudoku. Even at one point showing him my puzzle almost completely solved within a couple minutes while he had less than a quarter of it filled in and said, "These are fun. I should do this more often." He gave me a speechless, surprised look that quickly turned to a sullen glare as he looked back at his own puzzle and then put it back. He pretended to sleep for the rest of the flight. My ex thought me playing video games was pretty great. But he also had an inferiority complex and could not stand that I played healer better than him in Overwatch. Of all things. Which led to fights. Because I refused to dumb down my playstyle. And eventually our breakup.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.